What's up, Cableites? I'm Doyald, today's host for Unorthodox Sports, and I will be explaining to you today why the Russ trade rumors was actually a good thing for the Seahawks this offseason. When this offseason started, I had very low expectations for the Seahawks. I mean, every single year they like to buy low and then, get a really good return on investment on the players that they get. It's kind of like the stock market. You buy low, you sell high. Seahawks love to do the same thing. But it doesn't always work out that way. It doesn't always pan out and help us, get past that first and second round of the playoffs. This offseason feels just a bit different because we have actually done things that will help us later. I mean, we've adjusted D-line, we've addressed the offensive line, and we've helped appease Russ just a little bit, just enough to keep him with us. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe in the comments and let me know if you think that the Russ trade rumors actually helped the Seahawks this offseason. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was also one of those fans that was freaking out again this offseason when the Seahawks were pretty silent and had made virtually no moves to begin the offseason. But then they started to pick up. And now I've done a complete 180 and I think they've had a fantastic offseason, and I'll tell you why. So, as you might know, the Seahawks have had a major free agent class this offseason. They've re-signed a lot of those guys. They've signed Carlos Dunlap, they've re-signed Benson Mayowa, they've re-signed Poona Ford, they've re-signed Jordan Simmons, Cedric Ogbuehi, Ethan Pochik. Then you have Chris Carson and Nick Bellore in the backfield. They also signed some other free agents, including Kerry Hyder, Ahkello Witherspoon, Gerald Everett, and Al Woods. Lastly, John Schneider actually regained some of my faith back by signing Gabe Jackson just for a 5th round pick. I mean, he worked some of his magic this offseason, and we'll get to that later. The Seahawks made it clear this offseason that they really wanted to solidify the defensive line. They signed Mayowa, Ford, Dunlap, Aldon Smith, who we'll get to later, but they've really made their mark. And it is important to note that Dunlap is a huge re-signing because before he came last year, the Seahawks were lackluster. And I'm not talking about just like lackluster for last year. They were lackluster historically. They were on pace to be one of the worst defenses of all time. And then Dunlap comes in and he kind of serves as that igniter for that defense. I'm not saying that he is the main reason why the defense picked up in the second half of the season, but I am saying that he helped ignite that defensive lineman that was pretty much non-existent before he came. And when that defensive line came together, they actually formed a pretty good defense. Dunlap recorded 5 sacks, 15 quarterback hits, 6 tackles, and 4 defended passes in the 9 games that he played. It's also important to note that he was extremely clutch last year as he had a game-winning sack and was always in the thick of things late in the games last year. Ethan Pochik is important because, he was the starting center last year, while Simmons and Ogbuehi add some needed depth and versatility to that offensive line. Although the value of the running back position has been depleted over the last couple of years, it still doesn't hurt to have one of the best running backs in the NFL, and that is Chris Carson. By re-signing Chris Carson, we bring back an 1,000-yard rusher with that mean, physical style of running that him and Marshawn Lynch have become so famous for. And we all know that Pete Carroll loves runners like that, so it helps our team elevate. As Witherspoon and Woods will add great depth to the defense, I think 2 of the biggest signings this offseason are Hyder and Everett. Hyder had 8.5 sacks and 19 assists last season with the 49ers, and he will add great depth and versatility once again to the defensive line. Gerald Everett, he will add also depth and versatility to the tight end room, and that is something that the Seahawks haven't had in a couple years. I mean, if you really think about it, the Seahawks haven't had a formidable number one tight end in about 5 years. And even back then when they did, it was Jimmy Graham, and I mean, we traded away Max Unger for him and didn't really turn out to be worth it in the end, in my opinion, for the Seahawks. Gerald Everett doesn't have gaudy numbers by any means, but he is an all-around tight end. He can block, he can catch, he can run routes, obviously, and you pair him with the likes of Will Dissly, I mean, they can get pretty creative with him. Lastly, Gabe Jackson was the Russ appeasing trade that the Seahawks needed to do to make Russ happy, at least for the moment, right? All John Snyder did was acquire a guy for just a 5th round pick that started 99 of his last 100 games. And it's important to note that for 4 of the Raiders' last 7 seasons, they were top 10 in fewest sacks allowed in the NFL. He was also a Pro Bowl alternate in 2016, and the most important stat of all, by far, is that he did not allow one single sack last year, which is also a feat that he accomplished in 2016. He is solid, aggressive, and he's reliable. As the Seahawks have had quite the offseason, like I've just illustrated, there are still a few things that they could get done before offseason ends, and that really has to do with KJ Wright and Jamal Adams. Now, Jamal Adams, the problem with him is that he has 1 year left on his contract, and we gave up all of this draft capital for him, so obviously we need to re-sign him. But the longer that we wait, the more expensive that he gets. Because, I mean, if we're being honest, he's arguably the best safety in the NFL. So the longer we wait, the more expensive he gets. That's just as simple as it is. In today's NFL, right, when a new player gets signed, a new quarterback, a new corner, a new running back, they get that new contract, right? And they set the bar. So we don't want other safeties to set the bar so high that Jamal Adams is just incredibly expensive, because he's already very expensive to start with. And next up, we have KJ Wright. Now, KJ Wright might be easier to re-sign this offseason just because there's not a lot of teams vying for him right now, but he did state that he's not going to take the home discount. So we'll see where that goes. He's being a little stubborn right now, but I can foresee that he'll be back with the Seahawks by next season. Next, the Hawks lost their 3rd option in David Moore. Now, if I'm going to be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of David Moore. I mean, he showed up from time to time. He made some big, spectacular catches. But as a 3rd option for Russell Wilson, he wasn't that consistent. So we need another 3rd option to fill in his role. And we can do that either through the draft or we can entertain a free agent. Only thing with the draft is that we only have 3 picks this year, so we would really have to pick the right wide receiver. But at this point, I trust the Seahawks to make the right decisions with their draft capital. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up having more than 3 picks by the end of the night. It also makes sense to draft another offensive lineman just to please Russ a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see how much Gabe Jackson changes the offensive line and how much he helps the surrounding offensive linemen. But like I said, just having a guy like that on your line automatically improves it. Oh, and I know you've heard about, let me guess, Richard Sherman, number 25. Now, I know, Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson have been rumored to have a lot of problems, and Sherman has had a lot of problems with the Seahawks organization, but it does seem like the perfect storm, right? The one thing that the Seahawks do still need to address this offseason is the corner position. They're a little weak in the corner position. They lost Shaquille Griffin, right? They lost Quentin Dunbar. So they need to fill in that role, and Richard Sherman would be perfect for it. He'd provide leadership, and you'd pair him with Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner and possibly KJ Wright. I mean, come on. I mean, that would be an all-star defense. But the only problem is that Richard Sherman might be too much of a personality for this locker room. So I guess we'll see where it goes. I'm not directly opposed to Richard Sherman coming, but some might be. Let me know what you think. So once again, the reason why I say that the Russ trade rumors was a good thing for the Seahawks is because just look at us. I mean, look at the front office. They have been very proactive in who they want and who they sign, and it's worked out. So in my opinion, I think that this is arguably the best offseason that the Seahawks have had since 2014. Now, let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And once again, I'm Doyald for Unorthodox Sports. See you later. Go Cougs.